Thom Hartmann here on the news. You need to know this. Happy birthday, Occupy Wall Street. Today marks the one-year anniversary since Americans began highlighting Wall Street's crimes by occupying Zuccotti Park in Lower Manhattan and eventually hundreds of other cities across the nation. Events and rallies are underway in New York City and elsewhere around the nation to commemorate the occasion, and already there are several reports of more than 70 demonstrators arrested in Lower Manhattan. 1 year ago, Occupy changed the game by changing the national conversation away from deficit reduction and austerity and toward wealth inequality and job creation. After brutal police oppression, the encampments disappeared from the public eye, but Occupy didn't go anywhere. It's been operating under the radar, saving Americans from foreclosure, helping students with debt, and helping workers organize. The nation is in a crisis, and in response, the American people are pregnant with revolution. Occupy was simply the first tactic in the burgeoning grassroots revolution. What comes next, we don't know for sure, but it's absolutely essential to pick up on what Occupy started a year ago, get organized, and get active to take on the corporate 1% that have taken over our government and economy and are destroying the American middle class. In Screwed News, a new report reveals exactly why the Occupy movement is still desperately needed in America. That report, written by an international commission chaired by Kofi Annan, sends a warning to the world's democracies, specifically the United States, about the corrupting influence of corporations and money in the democratic process. As the report states, the rise of uncontrolled political finance threatens to hollow out democracy everywhere and rob democracy of its unique strengths. The report directly calls out our Supreme Court's Citizens United decision, which has shaken citizen confidence in America's political institutions and elections, that being the language from the report. As our nation attempts to bring American democracy to the Middle East with mixed results, this new report suggests we should be focusing on restoring our own democracy first, which has undergone a corporate coup d'etat. In the best of the rest of the news, the Chicago teachers' strike is now entering its second week and will likely continue until at least Tuesday. Teachers have asked for more time for their members to review a new tentative agreement with the city. Meanwhile, Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel is threatening legal action to force striking teachers back into the classrooms that lack air conditioning, school supplies, counselors, and nurses. While the labor struggle in Chicago continues, workers secured a big victory in Wisconsin at the end of last week. A Wisconsin county judge on Friday struck down Governor Scott Walker's controversial anti-collective bargaining law, ruling that it violates both the state and federal constitutions. As Judge Juan Colas wrote in his ruling regarding the anti-collective bargaining provision, it will, quote, single out and encumber the rights of those employees who choose union membership and representation solely because of that association, and therefore infringe upon the rights of free speech and association guaranteed by both the Wisconsin and United States constitutions. This ruling highlights not only how the war on workers is a ploy by Republicans to redistribute wealth to the very top, but how it's also completely unconstitutional. Colorado looks poised to become the first state in the nation to legalize marijuana. A new poll by the Denver Post shows a majority of Colorado voters, 51%, supporting Amendment 64, which is on the ballot this November and which will legalize and regulate marijuana like alcohol and tobacco. Support for the amendment is found across every income bracket and age group except voters over the age of 65. This is the first independent poll that shows a majority of support for that measure. But people who want to end the drug war shouldn't celebrate just yet. Back in 2010, polls in California showed a huge majority of support for marijuana legalization, but that measure failed ultimately on Election Day. Big industries that profit immensely from Nixon's drug war, like private prison corporations and the drug, alcohol, and tobacco lobbies, are going to spend big bucks in the coming weeks to defeat this measure. Let's hope organized people beat organized money to deal a serious blow to Richard Nixon's failed drug war. So what does France know that we don't know? During an environmental conference over the weekend, France's president and political leaders, including President François Hollande, announced that their country will continue their ban on genetically modified food as well as a ban on natural gas fracking. Europe as a whole currently has a ban on most GMOs, aside from one single version of Monsanto's Frankencorn. But France is taking the ban a step farther, outlawing all GMOs. And in regard to fracking, President Hollande said it poses serious risks to health and the environment, and all permit requests to begin fracking in France have been rejected. Here in America, our grocery shelves are filled with GMOs, and fracking is rampant, causing entire cities to be poisoned and even provoking damaging earthquakes. When a government hasn't been completely taken over by corporations like ours has, then it still has the power to protect its people from corporate predators. Go to amend.org to reclaim our commons the way France has done. And finally, things are looking up for progressive icon Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts. 2 new polls released over the weekend show Warren receiving a post-DNC speech bump in her bid to unseat Republican Senator Scott Brown. One poll shows Warren up by 2 points, another gives her a 6-point lead. While other polls taken into consideration, the Senate race in Massachusetts is a dead heat, one of the closest in the nation. But Warren being able to stay neck and neck, that's a big deal. And that's the way it is today, Monday, September 17th, 2012. I'm Thom Hartmann on the news.